I have some pizza on my shirt, but I have got a liter of water and da 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 da. I don't have a poem for because usually on this video I would be doing a storyline for I will be doing that next video, storyline for the story arc. I don't know if anybody cares about the story arc that I've been writing. I care about it, but in this video, we're going to be reading Dune Chapter 2 because I am crazy behind on that. I got pizza in my teeth. I apologize. Hang on a sec. So, here we go. To attempt an understanding of Muad'Dib without understanding his mortal enemies, the Harkonnens, is to attempt seeing truth without knowing falsehood. It is the attempt to see light without knowing distress. It cannot be. From Manual of Muad'Dib by the Prince Irulan. Let's take a drink to that. It is a relief globe of a world, partly in shadows, spinning under the impetus of a fat hand that glittered with rings. The globe sat on a free-form stand at one wall of a windowless room, whose other walls presented a patchwork of multicolored scrolls, film books, tapes, and reels. Light glowed. Oh, kitten. Hang on a sec. I had some technical difficulties there. Where was I? Light glowed in the room from golden balls hanging in mobile suspensor fields. An eclipse-away desk with top of jade-pink petrified alaca wood stood at the center of the room. Variform suspensor chairs ringed it, 2 of them occupied. One sat in a dark-haired youth of about 16 years old, round of face with sullen eyes. The other held a slender, short man of effeminate face. Both youth and man stared at the globe and the man half ridden in shadows spinning it. A chuckle sounded beside the globe. A basso voice rumbled out of the chuckle. There it is, Piter, the biggest man-trap in all history, and the Duke's head in its jaws. Is it not a magnificent thing that I, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, do? Oh, should I do the voice? Most assuredly, Baron, said the man. His voice came out a tenor of sweet musical quality. The fat hand descended onto the globe, stopped spinning. Now eyes in the room could focus on the motionless surface and see that it was the kind of globe made for wealthy collectors or planetary governors of the empire. It had the stamp of imperial handicraft about it. Latitude and longitude lines were laid in the hair-fine platinum wire. Polar caps were insets of the finest cloud milk diamonds. The fat hand moved, tracing details on the surface. I invite you to observe, the basso voice rumbled. Observe closely, Peter, and you too, Fayed Roitha, my darling, from 60 degrees north to 70 degrees south. These exquisite ripples, their coloring, does it not remind you of sweet caramels? Caramels, and nowhere do you see blue of lakes or river of seas. And these lovely polar caps, so small, could anyone mistake this place? Arrakis! Truly unique, a superb setting for a unique victory. A smile touched Peter's lips. And to think, Baron, the Padishah Empire believes he's given the Duke your spice planet. How poignant. That's a nonsensical statement, the Baron rumbled. You say this to confuse young Fayed Roitha, but it is not necessary to confuse my nephew. The sullen-faced youth stirred in his chair and smoothed a wrinkle in the black leotards he wore. He sat upright as a discreet tapping sounded the door in the wall behind him. Peter unfolded from his chair and crossed to the door, cracked it wide enough to accept a message cylinder. He closed the door, unfolded the cylinder, and scanned it. A chuckle sounded from him. Another. "Well," the Baron demanded. "The fool answered us, Baron." Whenever an Atreides refused the Whenever did an Atreides refuse the opportunity for a gesture? The Baron asked. "Well, what did he say?" "He's most uncouth, Baron. Addresses you as Harkonnen. No sire and share cousin. No title. Nothing." "It's a good name," the Baron growled. His voice betrayed his impatience. "What does dear Leto say?" "He says your offering of a meeting is refused. I have oft times met your treachery, and this all men know." "And?" the Baron asked. "He says the art of kingly still has admirers in the Empire. He signs it Duke Leto of Arrakis." Peter began to laugh. "Of Arrakis? Oh my, this is almost too rich." "Be silent, Peter," the Baron said, and the laughter stopped as though shut off with a switch. "Kingly, is it? Vendetta, heh! And he uses the nice old word so rich in tradition, to be sure I know he means it." "You make a peace gesture," Peter said. "The forms have been obeyed." "For a mentat, you talk too much, Peter," the Baron said, and he thought, "I must do away with that one soon. He has almost outlived his usefulness." The Baron stared across the room at his mentat assassin, seeing the feature about him that most people notice first. The eyes, shaded slits of blue within blue, the eyes almost without any white in them at all. A grin flashed across Peter's face. It was almost like a masked grimace beneath those eyes like holes. But Baron, never has revenge been more beautiful. It is plain to see the most exquisite treachery to make Leto in exchange of Kaladin for Dune. Without an alternative, the Emperor orders it. How waggish of you. Sorry, I need some water. In a cold voice, the Baron said, "You have a flux of a mouth, Peter." "But I am happy, my Baron, whereas you are touched by jealousy." "Peter!" Baron, it is not regrettable you were used to devise this delicious scream by yourself. Someday I will have you strangled, Peter. Of a certainty, Baron, and fan, but a kind act is never lost, eh? Have you been chewing Verite or Samutsa, Peter?" "Truth without fear surprises the Baron," Peter said. He drew down the character of a frowning mask. "Aha, but you see, Baron, I know as a mentat when you will send the executioner. You will hold back just so long as I am useful. To move sooner would be wasteful, and I am yet too much use. I know what it is you've learned from the lovely Dune planet. Waste not, true Baron." The Baron continued to stare at Peter. Freyr Roitha squirmed in his chair. "These wrangling fools," he thought. "My uncle cannot talk to his mentat without arguing. Do they think I have nothing to do except listen to their arguments?" "Fade," the Baron said. "I told you to listen and learn when you were invited here. Are you learning?" "Yes, uncle." The voice was carefully subservient. "Sometimes I worry about Peter," the Baron said. "I cause pain out of necessity, but I swear he takes positive delight in it. For myself, I cannot feel pity towards the poor Duke Leto. Dr. Yu will move against him soon, and that will be the end of the Atreides. But surely Leto will know whose hand directed the pliant doctor, and knowing that will be a terrible thing." "Then why haven't you directed the doctor to slip a Kindle between his ribs quietly and efficiently? You talk of pity, but—" "The Duke must know when I encompass his doom," the Baron said. "The other great houses must learn of it. The knowledge will give them pause. I'll gain more room to maneuver. The necessity is obvious, but I don't have to like it. Room to maneuver, Peter sneered. Already you have the Emperor's eyes on you, Baron. You move too boldly. One day the Emperor will send a legion or two of his Sadokor down here onto Gidi Prime, and that'll be the end of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. You'd like to see that, wouldn't you, Peter? The Baron asked. You'd like to see the core of Sardaukor pillage through my cities and sack this castle. You truly enjoy that. They argue like a married couple. Does the Baron need to ask? You should have been a basher of the core, the Baron said. You'd be too interested in blood and pain. Perhaps I was too quick with my promise of the spoils of Arrakis. I need more water. Peter took 5 curiously mincing steps into the room, stopped directly behind Feyd-Rautha. There was a tight air of tension in the room, and the youth looked up at Peter with a worried frown. Do not toy with Peter, Baron, Peter said. You promised me with the Lady Jessica. You promised her to me. For what, Peter? The Baron asked. For pain. Some kind of pain. Peter stared at him, dragging out the silence. Feyd-Rautha moved his dispenser chair to one side and said, Uncle, do I have to stay? You said you'd. My darling Feyd-Rautha grows impatient, the Baron said. He moved with the shadows beside the globe. Patience, Feyd. And he turned his attention back to the Mentat. What of the Dukeling, the child Paul, my dear Peter? The trap will bring him to you, Baron, the Peter muttered. That's not my question, the Baron said. You recall that you predicted the Bene Gesserit witch would bear a daughter to the Duke. You were wrong, eh, Mentat? I'm not often wrong, Peter said, and for the first time there was fear in his voice. Give me that, I'm not often wrong. And you know yourself the Bene Gesserit often bear mostly daughters. Even the Emperor's consort had produced only females. Uncle, said Feyd-Rautha, you said there'd be something important here for me to... Listen to my nephew, the Baron said. He aspires to rule my barony, yet he cannot rule himself. The Baron stirred beside the globe, the shadow among shadows. Well then, Feyd-Rautha Harkonnen, I summon you to teach me a bit of wisdom. Have you observed a good Mentat? You should have learned something from this exchange. But, Uncle, a most efficient Mentat, Peter, wouldn't you say, Feyd? Yes, but... Ah, indeed, but... He consumes too much spice, eats it like candy. Look at his eyes. He might have come directly from the Archean labor pool, but Peter... But he's still too emotional and prone to passionate outbursts. Efficient, Peter, but he can still err. Peter spoke in a low, sullen tone. Did you call me here to impair my efficiency with criticism, Baron? Impair your efficiency? You know me better, Peter. I wish only my nephew to understand the limitations of a Mentat. Are you already training my replacement? Peter demanded. Replace you? Why, Peter, where can you find another Mentat with your cunning and venom? The same place you found me, Baron. Perhaps I should at that, the Baron mused. You seem to be a bit unstable lately, and the spice you eat. Are my pleasures too expensive, Baron? Do you object to them? My dear Peter, your pleasures are what tie you to me. How could I object to that? I merely wish my nephew to observe this about you. Then I'm on display, Peter said. Shall I dance? Shall I perform my various functions to the eminent Feyd? Right. Precisely, the Baron said. You are on display. Now be silent. He glanced at Feyd-Rautha, not noting his nephew's lips, a full and pouting look on them, the Harkonnen genetic marker now twisting slightly in amusement. This is a Mentat, Feyd. It has been trained and conditioned for perform various duties. The fact that it's encased in human body must not be overlooked. A serious drawback that. I sometimes think the ancients with their thinking machines had the right idea. They were toys compared to me, Peter snarled. You yourself, Baron, could outperform those machines. Perhaps, the Baron said. Ah, well. He took a deep breath, belch. Now, Peter, outline for me, my nephew, the salient features of our campaign against the House of Atreides. Function as a mentat for us, if you please. My cat. Hang on a sec. I just had a painting fall down too. Baron, I warned you not to trust one so young with this information. My observations of I'll be the judge of this, Baron said. I give you an order, mentat. Perform one of your various functions. So be it. He straightened, assuming the odd attitude of dignity, as though it were another mask, but this time clothing his entire body. In a few days, standard, the entire household of Duke Leto will embark on the Space Guild liner for Arrakis. The Guild will deposit them at the city of Archean rather than our city of Carthage. The Duke's mentat, Thufir Hawat, will have concluded rightly that Archean will easily be easier to defend. Listen carefully, Fade, the Baron said. Observe the plans within plans within plans. Fade Roitha nodded, thinking, this is more like it. The old monster is letting me in on secret things at last. He must really mean for me to be his heir. There are several tangential possibilities, Peter said. I indicate that House Atreides will go to Arrakis. We must, however, not ignore the possibility the Duke has contracted with the Guild to remove him from a place of safety outside the system. Others, like this circumstances, have become renegade houses, taking family atomics and shields and fleeing beyond the Imperium. The Duke's too proud a man for that, the Baron said. It is a possibility, Peter said. The ultimate effect for us would be the same, however. No, it would not, the Baron growled. I must have him dead and his line ended. Hang on. I gotta drink some water. It's hard to do this voice. That's a high possibility, Peter said. There are certain preparations that indicate when a house is going renegade. The Duke appears to be none of these things. So, the Baron sighed, get on with it, Peter. At Archean, Peter said, the Duke and his family will occupy the residency, lately the home of the Count and the Lady Fenring. The ambassador to the smugglers, the Baron chuckled. Ambassador to what? Fade Roitha asked. Your uncle makes a joke, Peter said. He calls Count Fenric ambassador to the smugglers, indicating the Emperor's interest in smuggling operations on Arrakis. Fade Roitha turned a puzzled stare on his uncle. Why? Don't be dense, Fade, the Baron snapped. As long as the Guild remains effective outside the Imperium control, how could it be otherwise? How else could spies and assassins move about? Fade Roitha made the sound was, oh. We've arranged diversions at the residency, Peter said. There'll be an attempt on the life of the Atreides heir, an attempt which could succeed. Peter, the Baron rumbled, you indicated. I indicated accidents can happen, Peter said, and an attempt must appear valid. Ah, but the lad has such a sweet young body, the Baron said. Of course, he's potentially more dangerous than the father. With that witch mother training him. Accursed woman! Ah, well, please continue, Peter. I still have beats on my teeth. Hawat will have divined that we have an agent planted on him, Peter said. It's an obvious suspect to Dr. Yu, who is indeed our agent, But Hadwat will have investigated and found that our doctor is a school graduate with Imperium conditioning, supposedly safe enough to administer even to the Emperor. Great store is set on Imperium conditioning. It's assumed that even ultimate conditioning cannot be removed without killing the subject. However, as someone once observed, given the right lever, you can move a planet. We found that lever that moved the doctor. How? Feodroitha asked. He found this fascinating subject. Everyone knew you couldn't subvert imperial conditioning. Another time, the Baron said. Continue, Peter. In place of you, we'll drag a most interesting substitute across Highwit's path. The very audacity of the subject will recommend her to Highwit's attention. Her? Feodroitha asked. The Lady Jessica herself, the Baron said. Is it not sublime? Peter asked. Highwat's mind will be so filled with the prospect that it will impair his function as a mentat. He may even try to kill her, Piet frowned. Then, I don't think he'll be able to carry it off. You don't want him to, the Baron asked. Don't distract me, Peter said. While Highwat's occupied with Lady Jessica, will divert him further with uprisings and a few garrison towns and the like. These will be put down. The Duke must believe he's gained a measure of security. Then, when the moment is right, we'll signal you and move in with our major force. Go ahead, tell him all of it, the Baron said. We'll move in and strengthen 2 legions of Sadikor disguised in Harkonnen livery. Sadikor, Feodroitha breathed, his mind focused on the dread Imperial troops and killers without mercy, the soldier fanatics of the Padishah Empire. You see how I trust you, Feod, the Baron said. No hint of this must ever reach another great house, else the Landstrad might unite against the Imperial House and there'd be chaos. The main point, Peter said, is this. Since the House Harkonnen is being used in the Imperial dirty work, we've gained a true advantage. It's a dangerous advantage, to be sure, but if used cautiously, will bring House Harkonnen greater wealth than any other house in the Imperium. You have no idea how much wealth is involved, the Baron said. Not in your wildest imaginings. To begin, we'll have irrevocable dictatorship in the Chom Company. Feodroitha nodded. Wealth was the thing. Chom was the key to wealth, each noble house dipping from companies' coffers wherever it was in the power of dictatorships. These Chom dictatorships were the real evidence of political power in the Imperium, passing with shifts in the voting strength within the Landstrad and its balance against the Emperor and his supporters. The Duke Leto, Peter said, may attempt to flee or the new Fremen scum across the desert's edge, or he may send his family into that imagined security. But the path is blocked by one of His Majesty's agents, the planetary ecologist. You may remember him, Keynes. Fade remembers him, the Babe said. Get on with it. You do not drool very prettily, Baron, Peter said. Get on with it! I command you! The Baron roared. Peter shrugged. If matters go as planned, he said, House Harkonnen will have a sub-fief on the Arrakis within a standard year. Your uncle will have dispensation for that fief. His own personal agent will rule on Arrakis. More profits, Feodroitha said. Indeed, the Baron said, and he thought, it's only just we're the ones who tamed Arrakis, except for the few Mongol freemen hiding in the skirts of the desert. Some tame smugglers bound to the planet almost as tightly as the native labor pool. And the great houses will know that the Baron has destroyed the Atreides, Peter said. They will know. They will know. Loveliest of all is the Duke will know, too. He knows now. He can already feel the trap. It's true, the Duke knows, the Baron said, and his voice held a note of sadness. He could not help, but knows. More's the pity. The Baron moved out and away from the globe of Arrakis. He emerged from the shadows. His figure took on a dimension, grossly and immensely fat. The subtle bulges beneath the folds of his dark robes revealed that he was fat was sustained partially by portable suspenders. harnessed to his flesh. He might weigh 200 standard kilos in actuality, but his feet carried no more than 50 of them. I am hungry, the Baron rumbled, and he rubbed his protruding lips with beringed hands, stared down at Feodortha with through fat and folding eyes. Send for food, my darling. We will eat before we retire. And that is the end of chapter 2.